quotidian dimensions, the everyday realities of the strategy of deterrence that the Border Patrol has been pursuing since 1994. And with the Altar Valley of Southern Arizona as like one of the like case studies, right? This is where No More Deaths has done the bulk of its work. It's one of the major migration corridors in the country, or historically was. Like, it's, migration has shifted to South Texas in a significant way over the last few years. But during the late 90s through the early 2010s, right? I mean, this was the hotbed in the country for unauthorized migration, and it's also where the Border Patrol deployed a lot of experimental technology. One of the things that was really clear working in this region, when I started working with No More Deaths in 2004, the first time I came down here and went out to that area of the desert, there were, I think, like 1,600 agents in the Tucson sector. Today there's like 4,600. And this huge continuous, you've just seen this buildup. Now there's the Arizona, technology, blah, blah, blah plan. And you have the new fixed tower contract with Elbit's, like there's wave after wave of these like, of these like high-tech, expensive programs that are supposedly elaborate in all these ways. And when you're actually there and you see how they're being used and you talk to agents, I mean, it's very evident that it's fucking nonsense. And it's always been nonsense. I mean, like like the whole idea of ubiquitous surveillance is very much a fantasy. But yet there's this tremendous, almost like libidinal investment in this, as and this circulates not only among politicians. I mean, it was just the other day, I think it was like Rick Perry or somebody who clarified for Donald Trump that when he talks about building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, it might be a digital wall, it might not be an actual wall, right? So we're going to do another virtual fence, right? So this has political cachet, and it's cycled over and over again as like a policy thing that the U.S. should do. But it's also something that I think there's a lot of investment in from this angle of the Department of Homeland Security at a higher level, among the kind of brass, right, as a way to deal with like the operational challenges that they have, and those challenges are basically characterized by, and this is like getting into like some of the work I've published, but I mean it's really characterized by just a tremendous volume of really rugged and complex terrain that they're operating in. That like we're talking thousands of square miles of land, and the idea that you can meaningfully control like all human movement through this landscape is laughable. But yet this is the mandate that they have. This is what they're tasked to do. And so, I mean, like this is why I think these sort of like high-tech solutions become so appealing, right? Both to the public and to these security practitioners, because the fantasy is that you can basically treat the border as like an engineering problem, and if you can just come up with the right mix of like technology, if you can, and infrastructure and personnel, then you can solve it, right? And so you don't have to think about the complexity of the reasons why people cross borders and the role of, different, you don't have to think about the complexity of it. You don't have to think about like the fact that, huge numbers of your own agents are taking kickbacks to allow contraband and people to cross in certain locations at certain times, right? I mean, this is not a secret. Like, you don't have to think about like, the fact that like that from a policy level, right? I mean, people are like half the people that are crossing the border are people that you've deported, because their families and their homes and their lives are here in the U.S. Like, you have to think about, like, the consequences, the long-term consequences of, like, decades of U.S. foreign policy in Central America or NAFTA, or, you don't have to think about any of this stuff. You just think of it as an engineering problem, and then, all you need is the right mix of cameras and, the computational capacity to meaningfully process the data that you collect. And then, so you just need the right algorithm, and then the right, like enough helicopters to go out and interdict the people that you detect, and then problem solved, right? So, I mean, this is part of this bigger intellectual problem of, like, why does, like, I mean, in a sense, it's sort of like a stupid question to ask, because, we can come up with all kinds of, like,